Welcome to the Group Dentistry Now Show, the voice of the DSO industry. Kim Larson and Bill Newman talk to industry leaders about their challenges, successes, and the future of group dentistry. Visit groupdentistrynow.com for more DSO analysis, news, and events. Looking for a job or have a job to fill? Visit joindso.com. We hope you enjoy today's show.
Hey, I'd like to welcome everybody back to the Group Dentistry Now Show. I'm Bill Newman, and as always, thanks for listening in or watching us if you happen to be on YouTube or find us on groupdentistrynow.com. Without an audience, we wouldn't have great guests like the next guest we have up. So you may know this last name here. You may have seen Andrew at some of the events. It's Andrew Tralongo. Andrew, thanks for being on the Group Dentistry Now Show. Good to see you.
Bill, thank you for having me. Excited to be part of this.
So Andrew's company is T Management. They're based in Atlanta, Georgia. And you're also in New York as well, right, Andrew?
I do about 60-40, 60% of my time in Atlanta and the other 40% of my time in Manhattan.
Okay. Are you in Manhattan or Atlanta right now?
I'm in Atlanta right now. Manhattan's next week.
Okay. Sounds good. So you kind of switch on and off depending on, I thought you might follow the weather, but.
I try. In the summer, I do. That's for sure.
There you go. Well, so Andrew's going to talk a little bit. Well, first off, why don't we get a little bit of your background? So you've been in the industry a while. You've been at some other organizations. So if you wouldn't mind talking about that, and then we can talk a little bit about T Management, because T Management isn't just a DSO. You do some other things too.
Yeah. So I started in dental about 10 years ago now. I started at Tralongo LLC, which then transformed into Dental Whale. I was in charge of M&A there, not only helping buy dental offices for some of our clients, but also buying the ancillary companies that we bought, from education companies to seminar businesses to handpiece repair companies to kind of anything and everything we looked at in the dental space. I worked like really closely with the CFO and the chief of staff, Carolyn Bolton. So we helped not only purchase it, but also integrate it into our business. So I understood the dental office from the outside looking in. I never worked in an actual dental office at first, but I worked in every other business that helped the dental office succeed. So I kind of figured out what made a dental office tick from the outside looking in, not actually inside the dental office, which gave me a different perspective when we came to buy offices and saying, hey, like we could fix these things by using these services or not using these services. And it also gave us a really good insight on saying, hey, some of these things just don't help a dental office. So.
Well, that's great. We're going to talk a little bit about that later on, as far as your perspective from the vendor side of things, which is important. So you're not just on the inside, but you've worked on the outside looking in. So I think that's pretty cool. So tell us a little bit about T Management. Your practices are all in Georgia, correct? And how many of those do you have right now?
So we own 10, manage 2. We have our offices are all they're all unique in their own little ways. They're all within like probably an hour drive from our corporate office in Colony Square. And all of our offices kind of have the same kind of insurance bases, PPO, fee for service practices. We're culture people. At the end of the day, we want someone good to work with and people who we care about working with. I have a famous comment that sits on one of the walls in the office. It says, we're really good at Excel, but we can't change an asshole. So we try to do things that we try to work with great people. We're an M&A business too. So when we come to partner with people, it's not just about the economics of the business. It's about, the tenured staff, the people in the office, and all the people that work with us. So we look at kind of growing an office, not just between when we acquire it, but we do a good job of taking it from, $1 to $2 million to 3 to 4 is kind of our sweet spot.
Okay. So you mentioned that you own 10 and you manage 2. So what kind of management services are you providing to those 2 practices that you don't own?
Yeah. So we offer HR, accounting, kind of vendor relations, and also just operational support depending on what they need. So the operational support really ranges depending on what the office is doing. Our management clients have been with us for probably 8 years now. So they're long-term, more family than clients. So we take good care of them. We probably do more services than our contract says we do, but it's really kind of on an as-need basis. And we try to just help the staff and make sure they get the services they need and require at dental offices.
So were those two practices that you don't own, were these clinicians that just didn't want to deal with the day-to-day and they wanted to focus on dentistry? Is that why they partnered with you? What was the reasoning behind it?
Exactly. Yeah. So they enjoyed practicing dentistry. They don't really want to sell their business. They like being the owner and being the entrepreneur. They just didn't want to deal with the HR needs and the bookkeeping issues that keep coming up. So they outsource it to us and we take care of those for them. And we have weekly and monthly calls with them kind of just to go through it and keep them in the loop. But at the same point, they still own their business. It's still their baby and they still have the entrepreneur spirit that we all appreciate they have.
So the 10 practices that you own, are any of those de novo or were they all acquisition?
All acquisitions. We used to own a de novo business back in the day, and I think I'm getting gray hair from it. So I try to stay away from those. We have tried it. It's just not really our forte.
Yep.
I think over time we've learned that, when we focus on things that we're really good at and that we get passion in, we are much more successful than if we do things we're kind of outside of our purview. So, not to say we haven't scraped our knee before on acquisitions or de novos. I think we just scraped our knee less on acquisitions in comparison to de novos.
So that's a great lead in. So let's talk a little bit about, since your area of expertise lies in the M&A side of things. Tell us about the current M&A market. How do you see things? And it's interesting, right? We've seen this increase in interest rates. What's your feeling on 2023 for dental acquisitions and the market in general?
Yeah, we're excited about it. I think it's going to be a good market from an M&A perspective. I think some of the selling expectations have decreased over the time just due to the current stock market transitions. So I think for us, we should see kind of purchase prices come down a little bit and come back to kind of more normal purchase prices. I think a lot of the DSO prices have driven it up for smaller to mid-sized groups, which is kind of our sweet spot. I tell everyone we're more of the smaller side. We're not going to pay a huge multiple like some DSOs would. We're really here just to kind of build those relationships and have a good, strong business. So I don't want to ever over lever us or put us in a financial crunch by paying too much for a practice on the front side.
So what do you when you're looking, what's an ideal practice look like for you to acquire?
It really, the financials of it are kind of, we're in the probably $1 to $3 million practice ranges with strong EBITDA margins. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to the people and the doctors involved. We're not looking for a high turnover doctor transition business. That's just not our model. We like practices where the doctors have been there for 30 or 40 years and the staff has been there equally as long. Obviously, there's going to be some transition in the staff just due to the nature of the business. But we do really like to see long tenured staffs. We've had employees that worked for us for 17 or 20 years. So we want to keep that philosophy throughout all of our offices, regardless of when we acquire them.
So you touched on culture like 3 or 4 times already. So talk to me about the importance of that. You want somebody that's a clinician that's going to stay around for a while. You don't want somebody that's looking to exit in 6 months, but just talk about your overall thoughts on culture, the importance, and take it from there.
Yeah, for us, I think my philosophy has always been culture drives the business, not the economics of it. Like a crappy culture in a business, the business isn't going to be successful for the long term. And like we tie culture into how we value practices. Like we don't do earnouts in our practice acquisitions just because we think it's like antithesis of our culture. It makes people think short term, not long term. So we kind of structure things for the culture to kind of go inside with the economics of the business. We do things a little differently, I would say, than most groups and businesses. Like when employees start this, they all fill out a 7-question questionnaire that asks, how do you think? How do you communicate? And like my philosophy on that has always been like someone's first day at work is always difficult to begin with. Let's not make it harder by not understanding how they communicate and how they learn. Like I'm a visual learner. I need to see things. Let's not give me something that I have to, watch you do it. Like that's not going to work for me. Or communication style, right? Like I like to be talked to pretty directly. Some people want to beat around the bush. Vice versa, right? So let's not do that to the person who wants the other thing. So we try to figure that out on the front side to ensure that we kind of eliminate those issues that you would run into on a normal first day. And then we do something I call it a $20 indulgence. So some $20 or less you can't live without. So all of our employees in their 90 days of employment get that gift, regardless of what it is. One lady wanted beer, some lady wanted liquor. I like French fries. One lady wanted eyelashes. To me, it does not matter. We get you your $20 indulgence. So our HR department gets a little upset when we bring liquor to the office, but I think it's part of our culture. And it's part of the things that I think add value to our experience as an employer. And for us, like my philosophy has always been like, let's get people to where they want to be in life, regardless if that's with me or someone else. We had an employee who worked for us for years in one of our offices, and the doctor didn't want her to leave because she was too good at the front desk. The girl wanted to be a hygienist for like 10 years. And they were always like, oh, Pixie can't go because she's too good. She's too good. And I was like, we're doing Pixie a disservice by keeping her here. Like when Pixie wants to go become a hygienist, now she won't come work for us because we held her back from her dreams. So our philosophy has always been, let's get people to where they want to be. So we sit in a couple hygiene boards here in Georgia, and we help our assistants get to hygiene school. And another quote we have on the wall is like, we'll make you the best bartender in America. Because one of our employees wanted to be a bartender. And I was like, say less. Like, we're going to get you to be the best bartender you ever had. So like, she comes to the office, we try drinks out, like we do all these things to help kind of get her to where she wanted to be in life. And it wasn't being the front desk employee, it was being a bartender. So to me, our job as owners and employees and managers is to get people where they want to go. And that's part of our culture.
I'd love to get your thoughts on this because this ties into culture. As you're acquiring practices, that integration process can be stressful, right? To some of the new staff, you know, whether it's changing a practice practice management is probably the toughest thing to switch, but just in general, knowing that they're being acquired it can be stressful. So can you talk a little bit about integration and how you work through that?
Yeah, to be honest with you, we try not to do much in the first couple months. I don't know what I don't know has always been my philosophy, and I'm usually not the smartest person in the room. So they've been running this business for 30 or 40 years, these owners. They've been clearly doing something right, or we wouldn't be buying it. So we want to figure out what they've been doing right and what they've been doing wrong. Take our time to understand the dynamics of the team and let them to get to know us, know that we're not here to take their job or to replace them. So that takes time. And like same with like respect and building that relationship just takes time. You can't develop that overnight. So we take a really slow approach to integration, and we take a lot of input from the staff on what they want to change, what they don't want to change. Obviously, there's some things we have to change, like HR policies and things like that. But we take a really slow approach to it. I also think it helps that we're a family business. So when we walk in the door, it's me, my uncle, and my cousin walking in. There's three of us. So it's kind of people have a little bit of comfort knowing that we're family and that, you know, we are run together.
What's the job market like in the Atlanta area right now? Is it a challenge for you all, or what does that look like maybe compared to some other markets? Man, it seems like it's a challenge still everywhere, but
it's a challenge for us. We've had really good success with, like, hygiene's been the biggest issue, I think, across the board in the dental industry currently. We've had really good success by getting into the hygiene schools and getting younger students to work for us. And same with like dental assistants as well. We've had really good success with that. But we have a great team that helps them and it mentors them in the process. So we take a really good, really strong approach on mentoring these new employees and especially new providers, which I don't know if a lot of other groups do that, but we do. So that's helped us kind of combat the job market a little bit. And I've always been I call it a grapevine because I enjoy drinking wine. So part of we have an internal referral program. We pay our employees to refer their friends. And that has been a really good success for us across the board for the past couple of years.
That's great. All right, let's switch gears here a little bit. Technology. Everybody talks about AI now. It seems like that's like been the buzzword for about a year and a half in the industry. What's your outlook on technology, whether it's AI or imaging or whatever? It seems like it can make dental practices more efficient for sure. But I'm just kind of curious what you're looking at right now, what you're currently using in your practices, and what gets you excited about the technology you see.
Technology is an interesting thing for us. We give so much autonomy to our doctors. So it's we probably have different technology in 8 of the offices just because everyone has their thing they want to try or do. And I've realized that over the years that like trying to say everyone tries all 10 never really works out for us. We need the buy-in from the individual practices to see what they need and what they want to do. And that really drives technology in our business. One thing we've seen really good success with is the procurement software. We use Method Procurement, and is like, we have great pricing, so it saved us a little bit of money, but it's saved our team dramatic amounts of time and has made our offices much more productive. That is one of my favorite kind of recent implementations we've done, is that. And I think that has really saved our assistant bandwidth, and has increased our doctor productivity dramatically across the board.
So procurement software is something to take a look at for sure. Okay, yeah, we had a procurement webinar about a month ago, and that was one of the big topics of conversation. Whatever the platform was, that you should get on one that you like and use it, and you'll see dramatic differences. So
yeah, and we've tried AI in a couple of our offices, and some of the doctors just weren't on board with it, and that's kind of why it didn't work. So over the years, I've realized you need that buy-in from them to make the implementation much smoother.
Yep.
As much as some of them aren't involved that much, they still drive the ship.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense. Any other technologies, or do you think that procurement is really the one that you're most excited about?
That's my favorite so far. We're interested in trying some AI in a couple of the offices, but I think we're struggling from some of our doctors aren't fully on board. A couple of them are, so we're going to test pilot in those and see where it takes us.
Sounds good. Talk to me about your partnership models. What does that look like if you're a doc that's looking to come in, and is there a pathway to partnership for somebody that doesn't own a practice?
Yeah, I tell everyone we're extremely opportunistic. It's kind of our approach to business and kind of everything that we do. We find unique opportunities not only for our associate dentist to partner with us via sharing in the equity pool. Is it buying another practice with them? We've done that a few times as well. We're really just flexible and then what works for them. At the end of the day, like, we know life happens and things change, so we want to be flexible with our partners and be there for them on the good days and the bad days. We had a partner of ours. She came on board with us. She was an associate at one of our practices, so we bought an office with her. She got breast cancer like a month after we closed. And for us, it was no issues. We're like, you still own the practice. We have your back. Don't come in. Take care of yourself, and we'll take care of everything else. And that's what we did. And for her and us, that partnership is really strong, just because, on the bad times we were with her, and the good times we're going to share in that. So for us, I tell everyone we're partners on the good days and the bad days, and we want to be there for you when things aren't going good and things are going good. We have a good partnership where we partner with doctors in the individual clinics, and they share in a tag along vision with us at the end of the day if we were to ever sell. So from an economical standpoint, we're all tied to the same business, regardless if it's this practice or that practice. Our multiple will help them across the board.
That's great. So tell me, how did you transition from you were at Dental Whale, and now you have team management, and then how did you start with one practice? Tell me a little bit about what that looked like.
Yeah, so Dental Whale, we're at 100. We owned about, my math maybe along, we owned probably about 30 of them, and then we managed the other 70. So we took, when we split off, they kept the 24, we took 6 back, and then we kind of split off that way. It was a little bit of time to unwind everything and break that apart, but we got through it. So for a couple of years, we kind of did a lot of unwinding, and then about 2 years ago, we bought 4 practices, and then we brought on 2 management clients last year.
Got it. So 6 of those were originally part of Dental Whale and the other company, and you brought those with you under team management, and then acquired another 4, and then managed to have these 2 that you manage as well.
Yeah, and kind of our philosophy, when we don't do M&A, we expand our practices, is kind of how we do it. So we've kind of got really, I would say, pretty efficient at taking a practice that maybe 5 or 6 ops and getting it to 10. So before we even buy a business, we're looking at, is there space next door? What's the capacity issues? How do we get this office to be more efficient and more productive in its 4-wall capacity? So when we don't do M&A, we do that in the meantime.
Yeah, that's a great point. And what we're seeing, is the cost of acquisition goes up because of interest rates, right? And although hopefully, like you said, the pricing will eventually settle down, right? The cost of the acquisition for the practices. You're kind of looking at maximizing the value of the practices that you already have. And how do you do that? So it's great, right? You can increase from 4 or 5 operatories to 10 or whatever the number is. So is that, do you look at 10 as like ideal for kind of what you're looking to do? I've seen some that are as big as 20, some that love to be at 5 or 6. So, 10, where it seems like that number is one you hit on. Does that make sense for team management?
10 to 8 is kind of where our sweet spot is. We've had some at 12 or 15. It's a little harder to manage that. 4 or 5 is just not big enough for us. So at 10 to 8 is where we really see good efficiencies at. At the end of the day, right? Like it's providers really dictate that. Like how much room do they need to kind of operate in? Some of our doctors need 3 or 4 rooms, some need 2. But we find that 8 to 10 is where we can put ample doctors in a practice and it not be too claustrophobic for them. And our offices have about 2.5 doctors average usually, sometimes 3 or 4, but 2.5 is probably our average per office. And kind of our philosophy on that is we have no PTO policy. So our doctors can take off whenever kind of they want. And my approach to that is, hey, as long as the office is performing at the numbers and kind of where everyone has their hours and things like that, I'm not going to be here to argue with you about you taking 14 days or 16 days. There's no difference to me as long as the office can do what it's supposed to do. So having the 10 ops and ample doctors allows us to do that. And for our doctors to be a little bit flexible in their schedules.
Pretty much doing specialty in-house?
Depending on the office. Some of our doctors do it. Some like to refer who they want. Part of our kind of offering to our doctors is we're not here to dictate who you refer to. So specialty has been a little bit of a challenge for us, just due to the fact that the specialists coming in have to build that relationship. It's not just given referrals. So it takes a little bit of time to build that up and get comfortability there. But we've seen that be a success in some of our practices, not others.
Makes sense. Let's talk a little bit about things. You touched on it earlier when we first started off. I'd love to, how do you look at vendors and talk about vendor implementation? We have a lot of vendors, industry partners that listen to the podcast, and they're always asking, how do we work the best with different DSOs, or how do we communicate well with them? How do we bring new products or services into a group practice setting? So I'd love to hear your philosophy on working with vendors.
Yeah, we treat vendors like we treat our business partners. To us, they're business partners, regardless if they own equity or don't. It's really just, that's that relationship we keep. We've had vendors with us for 15 years or 10 years. So they're not, we go to dinners with them. They come to us for not only support in their business, but also support in our business. We're an open ear for all of our vendors. And for me, like, we treat our vendors like it's a two-way relationship. Like, no one's perfect. So we're always trying to get better. So how do we get better? How do they get better? Is an open communication line. So sometimes it's not always, hey, you guys did this. It's, hey, my team didn't do this well. How can we do this better? So we like to keep that relationship strong and keep that line of communication going, so that we know that we can kind of mutually benefit from each other and get better along the way. And it really depends on having that relationship with vendors that you trust them, and they're not going to air your dirty laundry out there, or try to nickel and dime you on things. Price is important to us, but at the same point, the relationship is more important than the price. So we want to make sure that we keep that strong and that we have that relationship with all of our vendors, so that when we do have a problem, it's not an issue. We know we're working towards getting better. It's not a vendetta or any kind of personal issue. It's just trying to get better. I call it emotional bank account. We have to keep the emotional bank account full, so that we know when there's, you don't want to drain that out. So we try to make sure that that's always there, and that there's that emotional relationship and that connection, so that when there is issues, we can work through it. And the end result, we all know we're just trying to make each other better, not bring each other down.
So if this is a question I always get, so I'm going to have to ask it. If somebody that you don't work with currently is looking to partner with you, what is the best way? And let's come at it from a clinical perspective. How do you go through things? So are you looking at, do you have a clinical? So if I want to sell a clinical product, What's the process? Is there a clinical director? How do I bring something to you and team management says, yes, we'll evaluate it. And then what's that process look like?
So we do it by committee. We take up usually about some clinical things, take about 5 of our doctors. And I try to age it from rate, like age range, and like clinical ability sometimes. So some of our extremely older dentists are a little bit slower, right? Some of our younger dentists are a little more productive, or vice versa. We all put them in a kind of a committee setting. We give them products and we let them test it out. And we say, hey, like, come together. What do you guys think? And we take a broad range of that and say, hey, the masses agree. Let's try this. Let's roll this out. The masses don't agree. We really don't have buy-in from them. We can't do it. And that's kind of how I always tell vendors is, hey, like, economically, I'm going to look at this, but at the same point, the doctors need to buy in. And if they don't buy in, I got no leverage. I can't do anything about this. So we try to make sure that the committee has a good amount. And sometimes the committee changes too. It's not the same people every time. So we have about 32 doctors that work for us. So we kind of rotate to the ones who like doing it and some who don't, just to make sure that they're all feel engaged and wanted. And it seems to work really well for us.
Yeah, I like the idea of rotating them too. So you get different perspectives all the time too, which is great.
Yeah. And sometimes, it also helps like public speaking for some of these doctors and getting comfortable. It's not just talking about that product. They have to go present this to the rest of the other peers who they don't know sometimes too. So it helps not only a case acceptance and things like that have seemed to get better with some of our providers who aren't used to talking in front of people and are a little skittish about it. It kind of helps them develop that way too.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. So as we start to wind this podcast down, this has been great too. I really appreciate the insights on the vendor side of things. Hopefully you won't be inundated with people now trying to sell you stuff. Well,
no.
If it's good, right?
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on the future of team management. So kind of where you think the organization's headed in the next coming years. And then overall, where does the industry, where do we go? Do we continue to consolidate? What do you see as opportunities?
Yeah, I think for us personally, we're going to continue to be opportunistic here. If that's 1 deal a year or 10 deals a year, we'll do it. We just want to do what's best for the business and best for our employees and our staff. And for us, could be buying 1 or buying 10. It really depends. I think we'll probably buy about 5 or 6 next year, but we'll see. I'm kind of bullish on the market. I think M&A activity is going to pick up the next couple of years. And I think that a lot of larger groups are going to start buying the smaller groups and being more regionally diverse. I think that's a good way to expand, and kind of a good way to keep culture and not have that negative connotation that some DSOs get from being, overbearing and overreaching from a 1,000 miles away. Having that regional approach to things not only helps you with staff development, helps you share employees, it helps that resources wise and makes the offices feel as if we're here to support them, and have that full and hands-on touch that helps to drive culture in a business. I think a lot of groups are going to start going after these middle market groups and helping expand that way, just because they have a little more touch to the community and a little more insight on the area than they have, from California or New York, wherever it may be.
Obviously they have a really strong impact on Atlanta and the suburbs. Any thoughts on going outside this market right now? Or are you going to stay pretty much in Atlanta for the foreseeable future?
I like South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia is what we look at, in Tennessee. Those are the kind of 4 states we're eyeing up. I think for us, it really comes down to people and relationships. I just haven't found the one that we think is best for us. And fully transparent, we're not everyone's cup of tea either. It's a 2-way street. I'm from New York. My uncle's from New York. We're not everyone's favorite cup of tea. So we have to find relationships that work both ways. And for us, that's something we value in a business transaction. So we're really specific on that. Like last year, we looked at 87 deals. We did none. So we look at a good amount of transactions, and if the people really drive that number to yes or no. So not to say that we didn't like all of them, but sometimes we got outbid, or sometimes just the timing didn't work for us. But we did look at a lot and didn't do any. So we're really extremely selective in our approach. And we found that the more selective we are, the kind of better success we have with these acquisitions post-transaction, and better success we have with the staff and the people, and the kind of, I call it treble in an office, but it's not the right term, but the bounce once you buy it. We try to make sure that's as minimal as possible. And especially when we're really selective, we've seen success with that.
That's great. I'll give you a final word here. Did I miss anything? Anything that you want to leave people with?
No, I think we're good. I think it's going to be a good year, and I'm excited to see where the year comes and what the future of dentistry holds.
Andrew, if people want to find out more about T Management, can you shout out the website and then also your email address?
Yeah, it's andrew@tmanagement.net, and our website is tmanagement.net.
Okay, and we'll make sure that we put Andrew's email address and then also the URL for T Management in the show notes. Andrew Tralongo, president of T Management, DSO in Atlanta, currently in Atlanta and surrounding areas, maybe in some of those other states that he just mentioned. Thanks for being on the Group Dentistry Now show. This is great insight. Love the feedback for vendors. Great to hear your story, a little bit about Team Management, where things are headed. And thanks everybody for listening in and watching today. We always appreciate it. Until next time, I am Bill Newman, and this is the Group Dentistry Now show.
The Group Dentistry Now Show has listeners across North and South America, Europe, Asia, and Australia. If you like our show, subscribe today and please tell your colleagues about us.